Good morning, everyone, and wish you all a very happy new year. Welcome to this special interview segment of the Global Excellence Council Awards. It's my honor to introduce a true pioneer in HR and organization development, Dr. T.V. Rao, co-founder of the National HRD Network, celebrated author, academician, and mentor. Dr. Rao has revolutionized the HR landscape and shaped countless leaders and organizations. Please join me in welcoming Dr. T.V. Rao.
Thank you.
Very warm welcome to you, sir. Very glad to have you.
Thank you.
And now let me introduce our host for today, Ms. Neelakshi Mukherjee, a dynamic leader in leadership development and organizational transformation. Neelakshi is a director at Global Excellence Council and People First. With over 25 years of HR expertise, she is known for turning big ideas into actionable strategies and fostering thriving cultures. Welcome, Neelakshi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shagun, for that warm note of welcome and the August introductions. Thank you very much, Shagun. And again, a very warm welcome to you, sir. We are truly privileged to have you in this session.
Thank you, Neelakshi, and nice to be interviewed by an expert like you in leadership.
Oh, very humbled, sir. Hardly an expert, still learning and learning every time that we speak to you, actually. And which is why this is such an enriching experience every time we do that. So, We'll begin with something which is always on our minds, Dr. Rao, and you having been there, done that for as many years as you have, and you have witnessed almost the evolution of HR in the Indian scenario as well as globally. Keeping the years in mind, sir, how do you assess the current role of HR, not just in the Indian context, but globally? Where do we human resource professionals stand today?
I think a lot of progress has been made in the last 50 years. And COVID-19 has been a very important changing point. A lot of things have changed since then.
That's right.
The human needs themselves have changed, priorities have changed. And I must say that HR profession, at least in good companies, have measured up to the expectations and rose up to the kind of things that are required. Today, if you look at globally, the best practices are globally companies that are doing well. They're almost all concerned with human welfare, particularly health, which includes mental health.
Yes.
And most of them, they are treating work and life as integrated. Sure. I think that is the biggest contribution of good HR people. Good HR people are able to see the importance of human potential and the need to take care of human beings.
That's right.
In HR, the H has come to focus.
Yes, of course.
I think globally this is true. And I must say there are still organizations, particularly at middle and lower levels, they still are struggling to understand the importance of it. In fact, some of them may not have even been attempting.
Yes.
So those who are highly short-term goal-oriented, because survival is an important consideration for some of them. Absolutely. So they are still using HR for administrative roles, which is
personal roles, yes.
Short-sighted way of looking at it. So if I'm saying one word, it has largely matured and has come to the forefront. For wise people, I think there is no way you can do business without focus on people. There's no business without people. That's the way, that's HR today.
You know, sir, you set me thinking, though I had a few different set of questions, but I'll just pick up from what you just mentioned here, a very important one about the gap between the slightly, or I would say rather big organizations, which we call the big fours or, MNCs, corporates, etc. They have, as you rightly mentioned, sir, come a distance, really emphasized on the human and human resources, and are really going the extra mile now to focus on the human resource. However, in India, especially in the Indian geography, sir, the smaller organizations have a huge lopsided prominence because of the nature of business that we do. The SMEs, the MSMEs, smaller organizations, How do you think they can, measure up? Because obviously they've got constraints. They've got financial constraints. They've got operational constraints. Given the constraints, how do you think they can at least measure up to the way the larger organizations are, kind of focusing on human resource today? What are the 2, 3 nuggets that you might want to share?
Well, I think your observation is right. I think post-liberalization in India, I think we entered into a competing world.
Yes,
So the mindset has been to compete with the best in the rest of the world.
that's right.
Particularly when MNCs entered here, we downsized and systematized a whole lot of things, focused on
Yes,
quality, focused on customers. A lot of things have happened.
absolutely.
And I think some of them who have experienced, quite a number of them experienced success. And sometimes when you succeed, you continue to be competitive and you forget the
Absolutely.
various factors that have contributed to your success.
Hmm.
I expected post pandemic, I expected companies to be driven by long term goals, which means, for example, culture. How do you build a culture?
Yes.
But I think the short term goal orientation seemed to overtake them, and most of the CEOs are still concerned with daily performance, weekly performance, monthly performance. They soon get into the competitive mindset.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when you are competitive, when you have this competitive mindset, when everyone is pushing, including the government, governments are also under pressure in terms of increasing GDP, and they look towards the industry and so on. Then
Hmm.
the CEOs and CXOs naturally put the pressure onto the
Absolutely.
HR. And very unfortunately, most HR is not able to constantly convince the CEOs that, look, people are the core, and unless you take care of the people, investments in on people will give you long term
Hmm.
results, like to building culture, particularly whenever a new company starts and so on. It takes time.
Right.
So I think where if there is any failure, it is, I think, the failure of convincing CEOs and CXOs. It's not that they need phenomenal amount of convincing. There is a lot of lip sympathy, but when it comes to translation, KRAs, KPAs, and
They
result
take prominence. Absolutely.
people. So
Absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
the only suggestion I can give to HR profession is, I think, constantly keep update and do not forget the great companies. I mean, if you look at
Yes.
companies like Microsoft and a number of others across the
Sure.
globe, they have come back to human touch, humanness.
Yes,
So I
totally.
think we have to keep giving examples, illustrating cases. So HR becomes a, a function that educates also the
Yes.
board and the top management.
Yes, I think that's a very important role that HR might need to take, which brings to my next question, sir. That we often use the word culture, and it has taken prominence over the years. And HR naturally assumes the role of architects of culture. So, as architects of culture, how do they gain prominence in the boardroom while trying to, as you were just mentioning, that HR should take up the role of educators? Now, how do they make that presence felt in the boardrooms while concentrating on the key elements of human resource? So how do they really make their way? Besides educating, how do they make themselves convincing enough so that they don't have to convince CEOs anymore? They're automatically a part of those decisions, which are talking about, the business goals, and those business goals are extrapolated with culture. So how does HR take that role in the boardroom?
I think most important starting point is we started it about 25 years ago.
Mhm.
Bill Gates said not more than 2%, 2.5% of our tangible assets account for our market value,
Right.
which means 97.5% are intellectual capital. This was almost about 25 years back. Today, the situation may be slightly different, not too different. The percentage may be far higher. It's true with Infosys, or you look at TCS or Wipro, any of these companies. I think what is missing in the minds of most CEOs, and particularly the board, which matters, is an understanding of the intellectual capital and its importance.
Very true.
We're only looking at day-to-day variations in our share price index, but we are
Mm.
forgetting that the market value of the company is built over a long period. So you can't just be reacting only to a day-to-day kind of changes. It's important for HR people to bring in. Now it's a little ironical. They are not on the. Sometimes many of them are not on the board to be able to convince the top management. Top management wouldn't even listen to them if they say, "I'd like to give you." But let's say you get somebody to talk to them. I think it's interesting. Get some experts from intellectual capital. Just address them. I think this is a good way where you expose them to global gurus maybe who can talk to you about the importance of culture, importance of human capital, importance of brand building brands. So in isolation, everyone agrees, but when it comes to, I think, doing things, so I would say that it is this role of communicating to top management with case studies, with outside people, experts to visit your company, and maybe in the city, many people can come and then talk about it. For example, I think just next week we have someone like Vijay Govindarajan visiting Bangalore, and he's giving a CII talk on fusion as a strategy. Now,
Right.
any strategy you use, it's very important to take people along.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
very, very important. So this is where I think if a CHRO can expose his CEO to this fusion, and then as soon as they get back, they say, can we discuss about what are the implications for HR? How do we
That's a wonderful reverse engineering that you're suggesting that,
Yes.
so yes, correct.
depth, going in depth and using these opportunities, because it's a legitimate role. Educating is a legitimate role. When COVID happened, even the Prime Minister of India got into an educator's role. You know, he was converted himself. So I think CEOs, CHROs can impress on CEOs the importance of participation, and then that's the way they can build up the culture, values, intangible things like that.
Very true.
I'm coming across.
No, absolutely. So which is where, it's a very related aspect that I would want to touch upon, that our leaders, right? Here we're talking about the CEOs and the CHROs, but then we have a larger fraternity of the C-1s, the leaders who are really running the business. How important or what prominence do you think development of these leaders have taken over the years? Because we talk a lot about leadership development, but in its truest sense, what do you think are the aspects we are missing out on while we are developing our leaders?
I think the most important aspect that we're missing out is building the next 11, which not only the CXO
planning, yes.
CXOs, but you go one level below, one level still below, and treat the entire organization. If you see, it is said culture is the next CEO. Quite
yes.
If that is so, how are we building that kind of a culture in the organization and things like that? I think this is something which we need to be doing. So I think CXOs and others are important. And in all the education effort, you don't stop with the CEOs and CXOs. I think you'll have to take entire organization along. That is where company-wide education programs. See, today we have moved on to self-monitored learning. Every employee is being told, you learn, you develop your skills. We only provide learning modules and things like that. That's a good thing to do. But that doesn't mean that you should have frequent workshops on how are we going in relation to culture. I have seen HR audit, if not the entire part of HR audit we have formulated, at least the culture audit part of it, or competency audit part of it, HR systems audit, is a good way to draw the attention of top management. Normally, when we do HR audit, we involve all people and insist. It starts with the top, but insist that it goes on to educate everyone and so on. But I must say that quite a few HR people are shy of audit, conducting an internal audit, because they are somewhere afraid. They're still insecure. That is where the problem comes. If you have an insecure CHRO, he is all the time becoming a yes man, and the top management really doesn't get a feel of what is happening, and they get quite surprised when the employee retention figures go down, and so on. So I think CHROs also need to do a little bit of soul searching. Am I doing my job? I think to me, this is very important. And I must say that not all CHROs are very secure people. So I think
Yes, that's a very
those-
critical point, that am I really doing the job that I've been entrusted, which is not the personnel department, but withholding the culture,
Yeah,
educating where important.
Yeah.
I think that's a very critical point. Where do you think this insecurity comes from, sir? You have dealt with so many CHROs in your life. You have, interviewed them. They've been your students. Where do you think this emanates from?
I think not one, many factors. It's changing substantially in the recent past.
Mhm.
But I think part of it comes from the starting where most of the CHROs came from B schools or schools of social work, and where somewhere psychologically it gets into them that this is not the first choice. This is the last choice that they have because they couldn't get in elsewhere. That used to be the case at least about 15, 20 years back. Last 20 years have demonstrated that number one, I think you don't have to be from a school of social work. And
That's
number
right.
two, there are many successful cases of people from schools of social work who have proved to be great change agents. And
Absolutely.
if you study them, they are people who are highly human oriented and things like that. So
Truly.
part of the insecurity may have been formed at an early level. The part of the human insecurity of CHROs is quite a few of them never stuck to one job. I think the moment you become a job hopper, already you are psychologically insecure.
That's
Why
right.
are you all the time seeking a new place? I think people who have not given themselves adequate time with one company
True.
and soon responded to failure by leaving the company, I think a large part of them are insecure. In fact, I would say this should be one of the recruitment points that if somebody has been shifting jobs, the CEO
Has
might
taken
say,
a
oh,
few
you are
times.
taking a lot of rich experience with you. But I would say check on that, rich experience with high insecurity maybe. So this is job hopping is a source of insecurity. Third one is, I think some of the CEOs are highly centralized. They don't realize this. Highly, I mean, very understandable. They are highly, I mean, they still have, they derive from their personal power.
Right.
When you have, then you have not given opportunity to the CHRO. Now the challenge for CHRO is therefore, should I leave the company or should I help the CEO to recognize this? It requires a hell of a lot of boldness. But there are CHROs who have done a marvelous job in converting the CEOs in slowly by taking them to other places, showing them the other companies
The
around,
large pictures,
inviting
yes.
people. So I think there are things that can be done if you are enterprising, if you are
Yes.
entrepreneurial, CHRO. I think you'll do wonderful things. You know,
Which is where I think the development of these leaders also becomes so much more important, sir. Especially even the CHROs, constant exposure to what is happening in the larger landscape globally, within your country, in the HR fraternity and outside. I think that exposure becomes so much more important for them to get that confidence and for them to get that willpower that, yes, I can influence the situation of business in my organization. I think that's why it takes so much more precedence. You mentioned the
I'll
word
give you,
changing.
sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
I'll give you an interesting example. Suppose your company is going global and you tell your CHRO to set up shops in other countries.
right.
Now, CHRO has a good way of knowing the culture of the country, knowing the markets of the country, knowing the business opportunities, and he will know a lot more than the CEO. So suppose he uses this to help the CEO to even set
Brilliant point.
business
Yes,
I think that's a wonderful kind of things. In fact,
absolutely.
I keep saying, years ago, almost 2 decades ago, when somebody asked Deepak Parekh, why are you sticking to one company? Why don't you set up your own company? You can handle the kind of intelligence you have.
Right.
What he remarked, he said, if I can do all that I want to do with other people's money, why should I?
Why should I spend my own?
The same is true with the CHRO. The CEO is a good shield for him. He can do whatever he wants.
Experiment. No, that's true. That's true. I hope a lot of CHROs are listening to this and they would be imbibing it very, very shortly. And
Yeah.
and sir, you mentioned a very critical point of, us being change agents, right?
Yes.
And today it's a world of volatility. It's a world of change. It's a world of, something hitting you the next day without you knowing it about it today. So again, how does HR become a front runner and not a backseat driver in sort of developing change, making organizations change resistant, building change agents within the system? How does HR become a front runner in this?
I mean, there's not one way, there are so many ways.
Absolutely.
But to think of one way, I think you have to establish your credibility as a CHRO or HR. HR has to establish first the trust and credibility of the top management.
Surely,
Now, how
surely.
do you do that? I think whenever there is a problem or an issue in an organization, I think you should be in the front line to be able to go there, investigate, diagnose, and demonstrate success. Units, it may be a department, it may be a subsystem, it may be quality issues, it's a marketing issues. But most HROs are not, HR managers are not able to take this. In fact, in one of the companies, I've asked CHRO, have you ever gone to a shop where your products are sold, a retail store, and see what are actually the preference of customers? He said, no, I only train salespeople. I don't have to go to the retail. So how can you know about the customer if you are only treating your salesman as your customer? Then you can only concerned with the turnover in salesman, not about, I think, employee the actual customer perceptions. So I think the HR people have to, first of all, redefine their role, demonstrate successes step by step, build their credibility. Now, if you have succeeded with one organization, one department, one system, I think immediately the top management will come and then say, how about this? I think you should then become a consultant. But what happens is, instead of this, some of the HROs say, I want to bring change in the entire company. I'll be a change management consultant. There'll be consultants from across, maybe some of them from big kind of places. Now, you can't bring change overnight and by the entire kind of a company when the company is doing reasonably well. So you have to be problem centric, you have to be issue centric, and at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, constantly educating. So I would put building credibility, going step by step, having small successes as a very important part of initiating change. Then you will earn it your place in the board. Absolutely, I think when you have demonstrated this. So don't start big when you are with a company. I think start small. I mean, this is my advice.
No, absolutely. And I think a very prudent one at that, kind of set your eyes on something which is doable and then sort of, establish credibility and then move on, so on and so forth. And I think that's a prudent advice for most of us looking at you today. Why don't you, sir, share a little about effective people, what we see behind you today? What is your key messaging in effective people?
Well, this is one of the books which got reprinted and which is now getting. I have defined an effective person as one who is constantly looking inward to discover his or her talent. We're all born talented. Everyone is born to be a leader. It doesn't matter where you are, how poor family you are, how much outside the society you are born to be a leader. But the only thing is you'll have to discover what in you can be that leadership competency. So my definition is effective people are constantly striving to discover something in themselves, the talent, and use the talent to multiply, to make a difference in the lives of others. This is the most important thing. You discover your talent, multiply the talent, and use it to change the lives of others, make an impact on the lives of others.
What a beautiful
example, there is a person here who, a very ordinary person, born in a poor family, who was found to be stealing and even in police custody for some time. I think parents somehow prevailed on him and made him an auto rickshaw driver. And he started running an auto rickshaw, and they found people lying on the road without anyone caring for them. And he took pity on them and he started looking after people who had nobody to care. That became a big mission. It's called New Arc Mission. One of the things I mentioned in my book, where today, I mean, just about a couple of weeks ago, I visited him in Bangalore. 3,000 people, old people and destitutes and all, like Mother Teresa, are being cared for. They're brought to a place, they expanded it. Now, imagine a person who was a small-time thief becoming a savior for thousands of people and taking care of it. So, this is an effective person. Same way in professors, I think if you look at, I've given many cases of my own colleagues. I am Ahmedabad. There are two professors who, at the end of their own kind of someone in the middle of their career, started saying that we need to reform the society and started a body called Association for Democratic Reforms.
Right.
I'm sure you heard of them.
Yes.
And there is another professor who started Speak Mackey. There are educational entrepreneurs. So effective people are those who constantly are looking inward, using their talent, multiplying the talent. And in this book, I have given examples of doctors. I've taken doctors like Devi Shetty and a whole lot of others, and social workers, number of them like the person I have mentioned, and there are large number of cases in India, teachers, educational entrepreneurs, and even some film actors. Of course, film actors are the ones with whom I may have interacted the least, but at least some of them who have done a marvelous job. I think everyone can be an effective person, provided you start constantly discovering your talent and start using it for. That's about the book. It's available on.
No, of course, which is what I mentioned in the beginning. And no, that's such a beautiful and reassuring messaging, sir, that each one of us have something in us which can make us effective. And I think that's very inspiring, and not just for us readers, but even if we talk about it, it's going to be very inspiring for the larger audience. So a must read, of course. And one last question, Dr. Rao, and this is most aspirational for most of us. You have truly been one of the most effective leaders that we have seen, whether in whatever role that you have acquired, right? Whether it was in HRD, whether thereafter as an author, as a coach, whichever role you have acquired, you have been a beacon of inspiration for all of us. So tell us that one, two things which you practice as a discipline, which keeps you afloat, which keeps you going, and which keeps you focused on each and everything that you do today. So give us one or two of your code secrets that we can apply in our lives and become as effective.
Neelakshi, thanks a lot for your kindness and nice comments. I don't know if there are any secrets, but what I do is I closely observe and experience emotionally, fully, whatever I do. And I keep reflecting about it, and I keep sharing with people whenever I have an experience worth sharing.
Right.
Sharing either by talking in the beginning, I think even if I have not written, I would take it to the classroom whenever I was teaching at IIM Ahmedabad.
That's right.
If I am teaching somebody, an executive, and I have observed something yesterday, I would very much like to talk about it. So continuous observation and reflection and sharing whatever you think with people. I think that is what, if there is any secret, I can say that.
But I think that's a very precious secret, sir, because a lot of people are not very comfortable sharing all the knowledge that they gather. And I think that's where you differentiate from a lot of us that we know or we interact with, that sharing your knowledge, being present, and sharing what you are acquiring, that has obviously set you apart from the rest. So, and you've been a true beacon for us, sir. Thank you for accepting the honors from the Global Excellence Council. You're a true beacon for the fraternity and for the society. Thank you so much. And we welcome you yet once more at whatever forum we can have a conversation with you. It's always enriching and enlightening. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Neelakshi. So wonderful interacting with you, and lovely questions. I think.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful year ahead and the rest of the day ahead. Thank you.
Have a great day and great year. Thank you.